one thing I'll give our buddy is that he's entertaining. I'll give him that much. And he's a hell of a musician. I got some of his CDs here. He's really good. He's very talented. But when it comes to the conspiracy realm, he makes Amelia and I look like novices.
I know, right?
You know?
Well, the fabrication of what he's done with these non-linguistic programming things in his the Beatles didn't write their own music stuff is what just got me.
Well, you know what? There's minimal evidence.
You can't say take a minimal evidence and turn around and make it like it's fact. And that's how he comes across as I'm telling you this, and this is the way it is, and it is not.
And it's not. And you know what, Mayor? Why don't we do this? Why don't you and I and Annie have that discussion? I don't know if Amelia is, quite frankly, versed enough in that aspect to be able to to hang with us on that one, but Amelia does know the rest of it. So Amelia, you ready to do this?
Yes, let's do this.
Let's do it. It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 p.m. in Chicago. And in New York City, it's 7 o'clock. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog DeCipio, joined as I am each and every week. She came back tonight. I tried to get rid of her, but she insisted on coming back. Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman. How are you, Amelia?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. The last time I saw you was, well,
yesterday.
God, forever. Was it last night?
Yeah.
Right? It was last night I saw you?
I'm still mad, yeah.
Jeez. Oh, man, she was on a tear last night. Holy shit. We're not even going to get into that one. Because we'll never, if we get into that, we'll never talk about the Beatles.
Right? And I want to learn.
Refresh me, because I think I saw it come up and I didn't watch, but I think I remember thinking I wanted to know what that was all about.
Yeah.
What was the topic?
And I was prepping for tonight's show. I had my Beatles mug. I had my Beatles shirt, my Sgt. Pepper's. I was wearing my Sgt. Pepper shirt.
Right.
Oh yeah, wait, I got a couple good ones here. We are, in case you guys haven't figured it out by now, tonight, the Beatles, their impact on the world. We're going to talk about the Beatles' social and economic impact. We're going to talk about their impact on pop culture, fashion, yes, haircuts. We're going to talk about all this stuff. And I was one of those little buggers that had a Beatles haircut for a long time, too, into my 30s. Shit. But before we do anything else, I have to introduce two beautiful women. Amelia, I've already introduced you. You're not going to get a third one. We have Ann Walsh and Marianne Howard, joint co-authors of this fabulous little epic. It's like a 600-page epic here called Shadow of a Bass Man. This is about the life and death of Paul McCartney as seen through Paul's own eyes. He takes the reader on a virtual journey into his life, his death, and the people in and around his life currently. That happens as well in book number 2, Shadow Dancing, The Rise of a Bass Man. And I'll tell you what, if that weren't enough, folks, it looks like the New York City phone directory. That's 2 books. And they got 2 more in the works.
Yes.
of equal size, probably more. If I know Mary Ann, she's going to have her way.
Yeah, it's a
It's gonna be
saga now.
about
It's a
900
saga, not a
pages book.
series.
Yeah, right. Well, see, Annie told me privately, off the cuff, that Mary Ann doesn't know how to edit. She wants to keep everything in.
It's all right, Ann. I know.
The two of my favorite ladies. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
It's not that I keep
I owe
everything
you
in, and I
$5,
see out
Amelia.
the
Amelia
bad, and
told me
I
to-
add, and I
No,
add.
Amelia told me to throw you under the bus, so I got to give her a $5 back. Okay.
I don't think so. I don't believe a
Right?
word he says. He's
Hey, Moonchild's here. You guys are going to love Moonchild. She's into this big time. Fall. She's already starting with fake Paul. I'm getting ready for work, but I will be listening. Thank you,
Hi,
Moonchild.
Moonchild.
This is one smart cookie. Moonchild is one of our regulars in the chat room. She's super into like the Beatles and conspiracies and all that stuff that we love around here. Let's talk a little bit before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, because we're probably going to crawl down. If I know Ann and Mary, and we're going to crawl down, 5 or 6 or 12 or 15 rabbit holes tonight, and we may get lost in one or two of them.
Alice in Wonderland was Paul's favorite, so we have to go that way.
Yeah, we will do that. So before we even get into that, I gotta catch up with you guys. How you guys been? Andy, how you been, kid?
Oh, I've been doing good, doing real well. Just working on the books and looking forward to getting those released.
You look healthy. You look happy. The health is improving. Good.
Oh yes, yeah. I've come a long way in the past 14 months. So yeah, I'm on the road to recovery.
Fabulous.
Doing very well.
And my beautiful blonde friend, the mouth that roared, Mary Ann Howard. Heard all across Upper Pennsylvania and
Lower Pennsylvania. Yeah.
How you doing there?
I'm good, honey. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Let's talk about these guys. You've written basically, and I want to just tell everybody a little heads up here. Basically, the Shadow series, as we call it. The Shadow series is about essentially just Paul. There are elements of other Beatles and their relationships to each other in the second book, more so than the first. But the entire series is kind of an investigative expose, if you want to call it that, on the life and death of Paul McCartney. Very heavily Paul influenced. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit about that. You can't talk about the Beatles and not mention, at least, refer to the that long-held rumor. Before I even get into that, though, let's talk about the first knowledge, Anne. The first knowledge you had of the Beatles' tangible impact, either on fashion, society, on grooming, on finance. What was the first real tangible inkling you got that these guys were more than just a rock band?
Well, I became a Beatle fan when I was 11 years old, and when I was 13, I just started collecting everything I could on the Beatles. So I collected, and throughout my teenage years, I collected a lot of books, and I read what I could on them. And then, through those early books in the 80s that I had described, how when they came here, they really changed our culture. They changed the way we talked. And then through researching the rumor for the past 12 years, I just dove more into that and started collecting original material from the 60s that really, went into how they were changing culture even more so. So, it's important to realize that at that time in the 60s, the Beatles, they were the largest export England had at that time. So they were the money makers. Yeah, they were the money makers for the UK. So
I'll tell you what. I as a 60 plus individual here, I can look back now. Shut up, Mayor. We're the same age.
I know.
I can look back now and have a real solid appreciation for what these guys did during their career. And I want people to understand they were only together commercially for just under 10 years. If you don't count the Quarrymen or the Silver Beatles, the Beatles, quote unquote, the Beatles were only a band for under 10 years. Okay, probably would it be a stretch to say maybe
9?
I was going to say maybe 7 or 8, but yeah, we could push it to say 9.
Push it to Hamburg. You can't go beyond. Before that, yeah. Here in Hamburg, that was it.
Yeah, the Hamburg, Germany, I think marked the beginning of the Beatles era, and certainly for all intents and purposes, I'm going to say honestly, Marianne, I'm going to say 1969 ushered in the end of the Beatles era, even though they technically broke as a band in 1970. But let's be honest with it, they were pretty much dissolved before 1970.
Yeah.
They did some contractually obligated work together in 70 that they had to. Let It Be being the last of it. And that was, I think, Annie, would it be a stretch to say that was it after that?
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, they were breaking up. I mean, the band was breaking up by then anyways. They're going their separate ways. Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty much over for them. But unfortunately, for us fans, we wanted more. And more of their music.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of the show I saw recently, the Fab Four. They have a great show, by the way. If you get a chance, folks, to see the Fab Four, spend the money for it. It's well worth it. Part of their show is interesting because it has a little film clip of Dick Clark interviewing, young teeny boppers, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to be around longer, the Beatles or the Monkees? Okay. Almost exclusively, everybody said the Beatles except for one poor girl who says the Monkees. There's one monkey left. Poor Mickey Dolenz is the only one left.
And he's still out there doing a good job.
Yeah,
I love Mickey.
But musically speaking, the Beatles, you can't. There's no way to even compare the Beatles and the Monkees musically. It's like apples and oranges.
You can't even compare the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and their own. In my
Amelia, when did you become aware of the Beatles' impact?
Well, I mean,
we've never talked about, you and I.
Well, I mean, I was growing up, and my mom, as soon as we would hear my mom start to play the music, like either the Beatles or Elvis or anything like that, we knew, okay, it's time to get up. It's time to start cleaning the house. So my mom would play that. She had all kinds of influences in the.
Elvis and the Beatles was clean the house music?
Pretty much, yeah. As soon as she started playing, because as soon as she started doing that, it started cleaning. I could see my mom's hips moving to the music. It started, with all of that. So it's like, okay, it's time to clean the house. She's ready to rock. She's cleaning. She's swinging those hips. Right?
So did you, let me ask you a question then. Certainly Anne and Marianne have a deep appreciation for the Beatles. They've written 2 books and 2 more on the way. When did you have a solid, sincere appreciation for the Beatles?
I mean, listening to the music really is like, listening to the songs, the words. I mean, they really had a lot of deep meaning, and you could really understand.
Boy, she said something important. The words.
Words.
Yeah, the words. How about that? The words.
The Beatles had a song about the words,
Yeah.
Spread the word.
And be free.
Let's talk about those words, Ann Walsh, co-author of fabulous book.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Another fabulous book. By the way, whatever you guys did to acquire the services of this incredibly prolific, writer here, the guy that did the foreword and your liner notes, amazing writer he is. Fascinating writer.
Yeah, I wonder who that could be.
I don't know.
Guy named like Angelo, somebody. Fabulous book.
I think he's a paisan.
Exactly.
Oh, he's a great guy.
So let's talk about those words, Ann Walsh. There's a lot of words in these here books, but there's a lot of words in them there songs as well. You used some of those songs in the books, and referenced some others. And so let's talk about your understanding of where those words came from with regard to the Beatles.
You mean in their lyrics?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, what we used in the books was kind of like little hints towards how they were feeling at that time. John once said that he writes personal stuff that people can relate to, and it's his own experience. So when we talked about Across the Universe, where we imagine John kind of thinking, well, maybe Paul is deceased now and now he's in heaven. How can I reflect that and talk about that without having to come out and say it? So, I mean, he was a great wordsmith. And so, you just kind of imagine where he would have been, and maybe would have been writing something like that across the universe. Those things just kind of came to us as we were writing. We kind of hear, some lyrics in our head and say, oh, well, that fits, this situation that we're trying to describe.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I think that was a very personal song that Paul was reflecting in his own emotions.
Right.
So, I mean, songwriters do that anyways. They and poets.
Well, and let me because you're going right where I want you to go with this. You mentioned particularly the song Yesterday. That song fascinates me even today on a lot of different levels, because it's being sung by a 21-year-old kid, essentially, at the time, right?
22.
All right, 22. Well, I was close. I said 21, right? Yeah, so 22. So he's a young guy with limited life experience, but yet the song sounds like he's lived, a lifetime already. So my question for you, Mary Ann Howard, where does that kind of lyric come from? Where does that living come from?
His experiences, even though he was young, he had done a lot of living up till that point. His mom passing when he was 14, meeting John, his mom passing. They had that life and death experience, being on the road as much as they were, and then to get into what we call the troubles. I think the troubles were already starting to hit him, and that was starting to take a little bit of a hold.
Yeah. Do you believe, as some people are suggesting these days, actually in the last 8 or 9 months, there are people that are suggesting that perhaps Paul McCartney, biological Paul McCartney, was manic depressive or bipolar? Do you believe that?
No.
Annie, you're shaking your head no.
No, I don't believe that at all.
There is mounting evidence from a particular group of writers in England at this time, and they are going to put a book out suggesting that perhaps Paul was Paul's worst enemy, that he was either bipolar or suffered from some sort of a manic disorder.
You're talking about Billy?
No, I'm not Billy. Paul, biological Paul. Yeah. No, we already know Billy is manic, and at least
that fits his personality because we know he goes in and out of different states.
Oh, at very least, he's a split personality for sure.
Yeah.
At the very least, but in so doing, though, as much as we hate to admit it, Billy, for that, lack of a better word, Billy Shears, for this conversation's sake, Billy Shears was an integral part of the Beatles, whether we want to admit it or not, or like it or not. After Paul passed, Billy certainly generated a hell of a lot of income.
Yeah.
For the band. And we're going to talk about that right now, the economic impact of the Beatles. They probably, even now in 2023, the Beatles probably outmerch everybody, perhaps except for the band Kiss. Because Gene Simmons puts his logo on
everything.
And up to and including, I'm not even making this up, folks, including caskets. You can buy a Kiss casket to be buried in. I'm not even. Please tell me if I'm lying.
No, you can't.
I'm not. I'm not at all. But let's talk about that. Whoever wants to take it, Annie or Marianne, talk about the economic benefits of the Beatles, either as a British export or as a British staple. What did they do for their country? What did they do for our country and the rest of the world? And why are they still generating money? And how are they still generating money? Whatever one of you guys wants to jump on that question, I know it's a handful, but.
Well, when they first came over here, they were selling records, and they ended up being the largest export England had, Great Britain had. So they were generating money for the crown, and they were creating jobs also. Companies were popping up here and there trying to sell Beatle merchandise and manufacture Beatle merchandise. So they were getting the manufacturing industry going, just to produce, their material. And they didn't make a penny on that, by the way. The merchandise that was sold in the United States did not go to the Beatles. They made nothing. It went to Epstein and all the.
That's remarkable, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's remarkable to think that they made absolutely zip.
Right. Remarkable. For every record they sold, each Beatle got a quarter of a penny. So they had to sell 4 records just to get 1 penny.
To make a penny, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
95% tax.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're not kidding. They are absolutely not kidding. 95%.
That's why George made the crack that time. George made that crack that time about the Queen being rich, because she was the one that got all their money.
I love what John did as a way of giving the British crown the royal FU. They were doing a concert at the Royal Albert Hall, and he said that Annie knows what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I know.
He said, if you feel so inclined, politely applaud. The rest of you just dangle your jewelry. It was like you had to understand it, Amelia, at the time. Yeah. It was John's way of saying, take your jewelry and shove it up your ass.
Yeah,
is basically what he's saying.
They were playing
and then he turned around and sent the Queen back his MBE. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's the document, you guys, that entitles a British citizen to the term sir or madam.
Yeah, because I think I heard that they have to pay like a big tax to her, right? Something like that out of their wages still, or something like that if you live there.
I'm not sure. I think Anne and Marianne would be more qualified to answer that than I would.
Mm-hmm.
So, Anne, if you want to take that one, or Marianne.
What are you asking? What the tax rate is in the UK?
Yeah, something like that. Even if you work there, you still have to pay like a big tax to her, no matter what, or something like that,
Well,
right?
yeah, it's just like we have to pay here.
Yeah, but it's like bigger over there. It's like, do you work for her no matter what? Like she's the tax person or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not real sure. Annie, do you know
ridiculous.
anything about how that works?
Well, I just know at the time the Beatles were paying 95%, I believe, in taxes out of their income.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I know
We've
that
never
Brian
got into
Epstein, that when Brian was their manager and he handled a lot of the aspects of their management, including some of their personal finances.
Mhm.
And I know this because I've read some of the books that that have been written about George. I've even read George's writings.
Mhm.
And they all give kudos to Brian Epstein in that regard, that he was able to help them remain solvent.
Mhm.
When Brian died, and then there was this battle for control of the band, particularly management, a guy that Paul or Billy, whatever you want to call him these days, guess we have to say Billy.
Yeah.
A guy came along named Alan Klein, and Alan Klein was an incredibly successful manager, but he was also a human slime ball because he would give you $1 million, but keep $5 million for himself.
Yeah.
That was his split. Here's $1 million. You made $1 million, but I made 5.
Jeez.
They weren't exactly learned on the mass of their day for accounting.
Well,
I just wanted to play the music, and they said, Brian, you take care of it. And so when Brian gone, and Brian wasn't even taking care of it because he's the one that signed all their merchandise rights away and all the other stuff.
Well, and that leads into this line of questioning, and we all know what happened. Brian became increasingly more erratic, increasingly more dependent on drugs and alcohol. He became increasingly more dependent on the sexual services of liaisons, we'll say that, and spent a lot of money for male companionship, by the way. Yeah. I'm not telling tales out of school here. That's already been written about. It's all out there.
We're telling those tales in the nonfiction book too. So
yeah, well, I'm when it's ready, Papa Bear's ready.
I know.
Okay, good. Now, but we got to talk about the money that they've made and that the money that they're still generating. Certainly Billy / Paul did not like Alan Klein from day one. He never liked them. I think he sensed something that was a foul here. That really was the beginning of the end, if you want to call it, and that really was it. And I don't think there's any question of that. Yeah. But what happened was that Billy made an incredibly insightful decision, was to separate him from Alan Klein. Now, Alan was the group's manager, but he wasn't Billy's manager.
Right. He didn't sign off.
Yeah.
And that's why Billy, even today, is worth in excess of several $1 billion. Personal worth, by the way. Okay. Corporately, he's worth an exponential amount of money. The sky's the limit because he's still earning. When you're performing, you're earning.
Yeah.
And the guy, how old would he be now, Marianne? He'd be
in Paul will be 81, but if you add the 5 years on from the Magical Mystery Tour of the 30-year-old, he's 5 years older, so then he would be 80, coming on 86. So
and that would be about right because he's starting to look it, and in fact, he looks it.
Yeah, the last year has really shown his age,
and in a very profound way. And I think that's part and parcel of the reason, quite frankly, that he doesn't care about holding back anymore. What's he got to lose? He's made his money.
Yeah.
He will die a multi-billionaire with everyone wanting a piece of what he left behind. But they've got to go through Stella and Mary first. You know? And whatever wife number 4 now, number 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She's already a millionaire in her own right. So
yeah,
absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But we have to talk about how they're still generating money today with, I don't even know. I mean, we got T-shirts, coffee mugs.
There's
Somebody's
anything you can think of. My cell phone. I have the Beatles
the covers and
somebody
lunchboxes.
has the licensing on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be somebody connected with either Apple or Sony that's got the licensing on this. Who's got the licensing and who's making bank on them right now? Who is it? Who do we know?
I'm not sure. I haven't researched that aspect.
Right.
That's present day stuff. We're still back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, you want to venture a guess as to who you think might be, holding the purse strings here?
Well, it seems to me that Apple.
I got a pretty good idea.
It seems to me that Apple is, and Billy is ahead of that, and he really gets out there and promotes the Beatles a lot. So,
the guy who owns the merchandising rights, Annie and Marianne, is one William Campbell Shepherd, whatever name you want to call him.
There you
go. He owns outright all the licensing for anything Beatles, McCartney, Lennon, Harrison, Starr related.
Is his name on it like that? Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I'm telling you, he is.
Well, I mean, Billy. You're saying Billy is, but is it is the name? What's the actual name?
Well, no, the name on the contract says Paul McCartney.
Oh, okay.
It says James Paul McCartney is what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
was thinking, boy, he is doing a tell.
Well, look, I told you guys before, if you need any help with the book, let me know, but you never called me. But I did write a hell of a review. By the way, that's on book 2. My review in the book and my liner notes. Fascinating book. Love it.
I love it too.
Yes.
You mean
it
too?
Was very, very touching.
Great book. So here's what's going on. Macca Inc., which is Paul McCartney's company. It's called Macca Inc. They own the licensing rights to every piece of property that has Beatles likenesses. Even Ringo Starr does not own his name. Ringo Starr's name is licensed by Paul McCartney.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Okay? All right.
And, he had that thing with Michael Jackson and bought back his Sony record.
Yeah, he purchased back the Beatles catalog. It cost him, they said it cost him almost 3 times the amount to purchase it back than what he accepted for it. Actually, what he accepted for the Michael Jackson bought it out from under him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what happened. Because he went to Paul again. We have to use the word Paul. He went to Paul and said, "Hey, Paul, how do I make money in music?" Oh well, you have to buy licensing, and that's what he did. He bought the license. I mean, you have to buy publishing, and that's what he did. He bought the fucking Beatles publishing catalog.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you guys, we were fortunate enough to get an exclusive from Sir Paul McCartney. Listen to this. Hey everyone, this is Paul McCartney, and you're listening to What's the Blues, America's podcast.
That's pretty cool.
Well, I hope he endorses our book.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I got one for you. Hold on. It's there. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Man Dogs and Scipio. Be sure to pick up your. Hey, it's Man Dogs and Scipio. Be sure to pick up your copy of Shadow of the Baseman. a Bassman by Ann Walsh and Marianne Howard. Available right now on Amazon.com. There you go.
Well, thank you. That was beautiful.
I put a little video together.
And the song was appropriate for the cover as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, let me throw something together here. Hold on, my commercial was getting ready to go. We have an automatic lineup here.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things go automatically. And you were about to get serenaded by a ball shaving commercial.
Oh, good Lord.
I think that's because it is commercial time almost.
I was going to say, no,
You need a
3 minutes
sponsor.
away.
You need a sponsor for female guests, and then you can have your sponsor for your male guests.
Well, I'm sorry, but we got to do it. Actually, we're up on the commercial now, Amelia.
Yeah.
Right? We sure are. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be back right after this word from our sponsor. Do you have sweaty balls or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with its patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Enter promo code Wrestling Future for a generous 20% discount. That's enter Wrestling Future for a 20% discount. Manscaped.com and Wrestling with the Future, going balls to the walls with Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0. Your balls will thank you, and so will we. What's Buzz Podcast wants to welcome Radioactive FM 88.6 in Wellington, New Zealand, Radio Perth, Australia, and RTL Radio 102.5 in Milan, Italy. Welcome aboard, and welcome to the Buzz. Okay, now that we've gained our composure back, only on this show will you hear a commercial for a bullshit razor. They've been with me for 4.5 years. God bless them. 4.5 years with the same sponsor. They love us, and they let us do whatever the hell we want. So when last we were speaking about the financial impact of the Beatles, let's talk about something a little closer to home: the social and cultural impact. When did it become aware to you, Marianne, that these guys were more than just a band, that they were affecting things around you?
February 9th, 1964.
Okay.
I can't go before that because, I wasn't aware, obviously, and it wasn't broadcast here. But, yeah, I was 6.
You were a kid.
I was a kid.
How about you, Ann? When did you become aware of the social impact?
She's a baby.
Well, actually, when I was 11 years old, and I saw the murder of John Lennon. And
okay.
I saw the gatherings of millions of people.
Wow, you are young.
Yeah, she doesn't. She
you're
didn't live through the
baby.
60s. Like Angelo and I were blessed. Not in our age now, but we were blessed to be a child of the 60s and a teenager of the 70s.
I lived through it.
We had the best music on both sides. So
I got to see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
I got to see that happen live. And I knew who they were, and I knew the song. And there were people, the day of that show, let me tell you a funny story about that. The day of that show, that Sunday, in my neighborhood in Philadelphia, where I grew up at the time, there were little girls, schoolgirls, with, like the pigtails and the Catholic school uniform.
Yeah.
Walking up and down. Marianne, you'll understand this. You'll appreciate this. Walking up and down Broad Street in Philadelphia with signs. I love Ringo. I love Paul. I love John. The Beatles forever.
If you watch any of the videos, you see that on all the videos when people need to go on to YouTube and watch all their.
I saw that in person.
Yeah.
I saw that in person. I saw.
I've seen those Broad Street walks.
I saw girls literally holding signs that Elvis is dead, long live the Beatles.
Yeah.
I saw one of those signs in person. That sign, by the way, is etched in infamy forever and a day on film. And you can see that on, as Marianne said, on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because it's there. It says, Elvis is dead. Long live the Beatles. I love Paul. Everybody loved Paul, you know?
I was married to him when I was second grade.
Right? There you go.
My best friend and I pretended we were married to Paul and George. We would act out all sorts of things. We were Patty and...
Talk about an interesting phenomenon. Everyone assumed that Paul was the leader of the group. He was not. It was John's band, John's group. How did Paul become the ad hoc spokesman for the...
I think it's because Paul would be doing all the introductions of the songs. He was the one that spoke the most. He was the most diplomatic about how John would stick his foot in it and Paul would save him.
Yeah, well, look, John, I'll give John credit. He had no filter.
No.
I like people with no filter. But
the leader, wouldn't you think the leader of the band would be the one to be announcing the songs and what's coming up next? And
it makes
Paul even
sense.
shush people. I mean,
absolutely, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I ask these questions because I'm an inquiring mind. I have to do this. Speaking of inquiring minds, Moonchild wants to know, will you be discussing the documentary Paul McCartney Really Is Dead, The Last Will and Testament of George Harrison? I've actually seen that film. It was very well made. It was complete bullshit, but it was very, very well made.
It woke people up.
I don't believe for one moment the premise of the film, the way they weave together fiction and real life, and the way they weaved in song lyrics and the subtext of the songs. For example, talking about Paul being killed in a car crash, and a guy from MI5 came along named Maxwell. Okay, well, so Maxwell's silver hammer came down upon his. Okay, look, that's cute. It's pithy. I like it, but it's not real. Okay. Not only am I an intelligent person, I've got an interesting sense here. It's what I do for a living. I know bullshit when I smell it. She said I found it fascinating, Moonchild. Well, it was fascinating from an entertainment standpoint, but from a truth standpoint, from a historical standpoint, it was complete poppycock.
Yeah. Also,
I love saying the word poppycock.
What I feel like happened with having George Harrison's Last Will and Testament was it woke people up. We grew up with the rumor in the 60s.
Yep.
And we knew, most of us knew something was going on. You could, I could feel the change, and I went off of, Paul would say, well, we would be on them or we'd be off of them. I went off of them for a while.
Marianne and Annie, when I saw that film, and I saw it when it came out, and I saw, believe it or not, I saw a theatrical release of that movie before it hit the small screen television. And right after that movie was released, there was an explosion of Paul is Dead books.
Yeah.
Were being cranked out like at a ridiculously rapid rate, because everybody then who knew something, here's my summarization of it. Everybody who knew something then felt safe enough to be able to say something on paper, because the movie had already tipped the hat.
And that was also at the same time. Was it not 2000? Was it 2009?
Around. I'll tell you right now.
2009 is when Facebook started. 2009 is when most of us of our generation started being on the internet for social media. It's when we all started researching things, and we were able to look and explore and visualize
instead of going to look through.
Instead of looking at something, well, we couldn't look at anything.
Right.
I mean, we had VHS, or VH1. the MTV and that kind of stuff.
2009, Marianne.
Huh?
2009.
Yeah. So 2009 is Facebook, social media, and our realization that we can start exploring and researching and looking at things.
Yeah.
And seeing that there's
absolutely
now there's those things that they were talking about 30 years ago, 40 years ago at that time actually happened.
It seems like 2008, 2009 was the genesis of a brand new audience of Beatles fans coming, emerging, or coming to maturity.
Yeah.
You know, you had us old farts. I speak collectively for Marianne and I and people of our age, because
our generation,
exactly. My generation. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
speaking
by
of
the way,
which,
Roger Daltrey's starting to look at his age too.
Yeah. Speaking of which, though, on our topic of pop for the 60s, Michael Caine did a really good documentary back in around 2000 and something on my generation. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I recommend anybody watch that. So
I know the film.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this here. His name should be, hold on a second. Let's see here. His name should be called The Mailman, because boy, does he always deliver. Thanks again, Angela, for what you did for us. Oh, that's Jimmy Thunder from Down Under. Oh, what he's talking about, I didn't know that was Jimmy. What he's talking about is for his birthday, his son wanted to meet one of our guests. I had two lookalikes on the show. I had the Gene Simmons lookalike and the Paul Stanley lookalike. And when I tell you guys, they are dead ringers.
Oh my God.
I'm not even playing. These guys are dead ringers.
When I saw them, I was like,
so Jimmy Thunder from Down Under, he's our guy in New Zealand.
Nice.
That's how we were able to acquire that radio station in New Zealand. And I'm very grateful for him. But his son wanted to meet the Paul Stanley lookalike. So the guy made him a video and sent it to him. And then the kid sent me a video. It was like really very heartwarming. I felt like I did something good.
You did.
I was a hero.
You did.
So sweet.
It felt wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jimmy's a great guy. He's one of our guys here. So yeah, there's interesting thing here that's happened. All of this Beatles stuff started popping up everywhere, and then people were no longer afraid to talk about Paul, and they were, even record companies were re-releasing albums, and I've got, thankfully for that, I have my Beatles collection complete again.
Yeah.
I have built and rebuilt this collection, you guys.
Yeah, I'm with you.
5 times over the last like 40 years, for real. At least that much over the last 40 years. You move and you miss this, and you move again and you miss that. And one place I ended up leaving like a shitload of albums. I was like, and I had the original White Album, and I had the original Meet the Beatles, and Help, and all this, right?
Yep.
But now, thankfully, I got them all back.
Yeah.
So thank you for cranking out them albums, Parlophone Records. I appreciate it.
And it's nice that there's a lot of flea market places. And I found a vendor. I got to go back. I spent $300 there the last time I was there. I got to go back and go buy more.
There's a place I want to tell you about when we get off the air.
Yeah. Well, I'm not giving away my place.
Nope. I'm going to tell you, and when we get off the air, I'm going to give you the name of a place that you'll find anything you want.
Oh, I'm there.
Anything.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows, back in 1964, when the Beatles hit Ed Sullivan, they never saw 4 guys quite like this. Interesting. They were all dressed alike. You hadn't really seen groups dressed alike before. I mean, they were, of course, gentlemanly suits at the time, They didn't look like the Rolling Stones or, AC/DC do today. Even the Stones actually used to wear ties. Believe it or not, folks, it's true. Mick Jagger used to wear a tie. Scary thought, but he did. And Keith Richards still looks the same. Damn it. He looked miserable then. He looks miserable now. But Keith is a great guy. But here's the thing that people remember: them haircuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Them haircuts, man. Them Beatles haircuts.
And I look at their haircuts now. I mean, I look at it now on them then, and I think their hair's not really. It's not really anything that Paul always had it layered. It wasn't like it was long and all hanging down and straggly. It was always trimmed and you know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's the thing about that: as
it wasn't long either.
As proper. And they did look proper, as proper as they looked at the time.
Oh, I know. They were still labeled.
Believe it or not, that hair was considered long for the time.
Well, compared to the buzz cuts of the day, it was.
You know why they considered it long hair, Annie?
Because you had buzz cuts.
No, because it covered your ears.
Their ears.
Oh.
They considered long hair anything that covered your ears.
Long hair hippie freaks need not apply.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Those them the mop tops. Yeah, they were mop tops for sure. Yeah. Especially when they used to go woo. And hair would fly all over the place.
It fly everywhere like
The Beatles have impacted us in a lot of ways culturally. Our language, we're saying things that we never said before. The Beatles introduced us to a new kind of vernacular. Some they got from their homeland of Great Britain. Some they got from Germany and other places they performed. I suspect my own summarization. I suspect that they got much more from Germany than we have been led to believe. That's my personal take on it. I think that they acquired a lot of knowledge that they didn't have before. I think that they acquired their sense of musical astuteness there. They certainly learned to play for sure because they were given the freedom to play. Think about what they were doing. 3 to 4 shows a day, 6 days a week. That's a lot of playing.
They were playing like 8 hours at a time too. They weren't like they didn't have breaks.
That's what I'm saying. They were doing 3-4 shows a day.
Yes.
That's all you figure an hour and a half set 3 or 4 times. There's your 8 hours right there.
I don't even know that they had sets back then, that they were doing sets. I think this band is hired to play from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. This band is prepared to play from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. You know,
you might be more right on that than I am.
From what I was reading, that's what I'm gathering, that they were playing huge long stretches. That's why they ended up having
Annie,
Prologin and stuff that they would take occasionally to keep them going.
Does that mesh with you too? That what Marianne is saying about them? They're playing like long, like 8 hours at a time.
Yes, that's why their manager at the time sent them over to Hamburg, was to fine tune their playing.
You guys know anything about a guy named Alan Williams?
Yes,
that was their first manager.
He's the one who sent them to Hamburg.
Yeah,
that's the guy. That man doesn't get enough credit. He's the unsung hero.
Yeah,
of the Beatles. He
actually brought Brian to see. He brought Brian to see the Beatles. I mean, so
I don't think that Alan Williams truly appreciated at the time what he had, or maybe he knew that his knowledge or his clout, if you will,
he was
could only take them so far.
Right. He knew his limitations, and he knew what Brian maybe could bring.
Well, because Brian came from a money background, and his family owned music stores.
Yeah, furniture stores with a music store on top.
Yeah, exactly. How crazy is that?
Yeah,
it's interesting. I'm going to tell you something crazy. After this show tonight, I'm going to tell you about a furniture store with a music store on the top. That's where I'm going to send you.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm absolutely serious. It is a furniture store. In fact, you know what? I'm going to give them a little plug right now. To my friend Mr. Keppel at Keppel's Carpets in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'm sorry, in West Berlin, New Jersey. I'm going to send some people your way. Mr. Keppel is a musician. He's got a great furniture store there with carpet and all kinds of things that you furnish your house with. And he has an incredible record museum on the top of his store, and it's called the Record Museum.
Oh, wow.
And it's in West Berlin, New Jersey. I don't have the phone number offhand because I didn't plan on doing an ad hoc commercial, but there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And I'll talk to Mr. Keppel, and maybe I'll get him as a
sponsor. Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, but you'll find anything Beatles you want, you'll find anything. He's even got stuff from Tony Sheridan and the Beatles.
I do too.
Yeah, that's hard to find stuff though.
It is.
I do. I have that one of their records with Tony Sheridan, thanks to Shirley.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
If you can find,
Yeah,
like, Tony Sheridan stuff, that's because I think Tony's got to be gone now.
well,
But he had his hair was. Is he still around, Annie? Tony Sheridan?
I don't know if he is or not, to be
Because
honest.
I know he had
We can
gray
look it
hair
up.
down to his ass. He had a ponytail this freaking long. Yeah, Marianne, see if Tony Sheridan's still
I'm
with us.
looking. I know. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that album too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a rare one, and it's a treasure if you can find it.
Amelia, ask away, kiddo. Ask away.
Yeah, one of my favorite songs I remember is the John Lennon song "Imagine." Anytime that I'm feeling down or I just want to even like focus and concentrate, if I'm having a bad day, I just listen to that song over and over just to kind of like get through the day. That's one of my favorites.
They just had oh God, I saw it on Facebook that you mentioned. Imagine they just had the piano.
Oh, I love that.
That John Lennon composed Imagine on.
Really?
It was in the lobby of a hotel in Los Angeles, in California.
Oh, wow.
And they had the whole Beatles display in the background. I believe it was a photographer. They had a Beatles photographer, and they were displaying his artwork.
Oh, wow.
Well, he happened to be the photographer that photographed John Lennon on that piano, composing Imagine.
Was that the White Baby Grand?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Yep. It was in L.A. not more than 3 months ago. Like, and it was making the rounds.
Oh,
because the photographer that had the Beatles setup, and I'll get his name in a minute for you. He's written a brand new Beatles book. It's like a coffee table book, big one.
Yeah.
And he had the piano with him at every stop.
Oh.
So, and I'm waiting for them to make their way to the East Coast because they are coming this way.
I'm wondering if it's the white upright with it wasn't, but was painted white with the grapes on it.
No, this is, I know which one you're talking about. This is the Baby Grand. It's a white Baby Grand.
I thought Yoko still had the Baby Grand at the Dakota.
She may still own it, but I will tell you that white Baby Grand is it's on tour right now.
Oh.
And I know that.
Isn't that amazing? A piano is on tour.
I know, right?
Well, it's on tour because the photographer is on
I
tour.
gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah,
okay.
I don't know if Yoko still owns it. I don't know if she sold it or they had some kind of contractual
I'm
deal.
sure she's making out on it.
Oh, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
She's leased it.
But I do know for sure, for certain, that Yoko does own the upright with the grapes on it.
Yeah.
That I know for sure.
That had a great paint job. So Tony Sheridan died on February 16th, 2013.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, I know he lived to be, a nice.
Well, he was probably 10 years older than Abouts, wasn't he? In his early 30s, and they were in their early 20s. So.
Tony would have been at the time 30, maybe 32. I'm wanting to say 31, 32. And that sounds about right. Yeah. If he died in 13, he was probably, and I don't know how old he was, but I'm guessing that he's had to be somewhere around 82, 83, maybe somewhere around there.
He was born in May of the 40s, so 60, 70, 8, 70, 73, 83.
Well, I know that I'm in the ballpark. I know that for sure. He's got to be somewhere between 75 and 80, somewhere around.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So, when you talk about you know what? The one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the evolution of the Beatles, the way they changed their look, their style. So let's take a look at a little show and tell. Take a look at this. Look at the Beatles, the evolution of the Beatles. Interesting to see the old Ed Sullivan clips. They were, boy, they bring back some memories. It's funny. When I went to see the Fab Four, because Marianne, you know, they have an Ed Sullivan impersonator as part of the show. And the guy that, I don't know who you guys had, but the guy that did Ed Sullivan for my show was Jeff DeHart. He actually lives like 5 minutes away from where I am right now.
Oh.
Yeah, he lives in Medford, New Jersey.
Oh.
In that
I have
area.
family there.
Medford, Cherry Hill area.
Yeah.
But this guy recreated Ed Sullivan like like he was there.
Oh,
It was
wow.
remarkable to see. I felt like it was like, oh shit, this is like deja vu. I'm watching Sullivan again.
Like you went back to the past.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm watching the Sullivan show again.
That was a Sunday night ritual. You know, I think we were
Oh
even
my
at
God, yes.
the grandparents' house and for dinner, and then you'd stay and watch the show and go home. And
oh my God, yeah. Are you kidding?
you remember because we used to go to grandparents' house on Sundays for dinner, right? Back then.
Yep.
Yeah, sure
social
did.
change.
And every Sunday it was the same thing: spaghetti, meatballs, and.
That's because we had paisans for.
The only thing that changed was the dessert.
Yeah,
that was the only thing that ever changed was the dessert. Was it going to be something that you liked, or was it going to be, like crumb cake, which everybody hated crumb cake?
Jello,
I loved
fruit or ice cream.
Ice cream was always a good one. Sticky buns were always good, especially the sticky buns with all the nuts on them. That was me all day long. That was me all day long. I'll take them. Give me the nuts. Give me the raisins. Don't give me any crumb cake because it's dry and I don't want to eat it because I feel like I'm swallowing sand. I want something that's got some moisture to it, or a cannoli. That always works good too. But always a spaghetti and meatballs every Sunday. That and Ed Sullivan. Amelia, you're the young pup of the crew here. Okay, so let me bring you into this fold here, because it's like so far it's been the old man just yapping off about memories and days gone by.
I like hearing the memories. I love hearing the stories because that brings me back.
Throw it to you. I'm going to throw the floor to you. Questions for the ladies.
I just I can't wait to hear about your book that you're coming up. Do you know when you're going to be bringing book 3? Exactly, because I know you guys were still reading, writing the book.
Book 3 is sort of on hold until we get the nonfiction out.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to working on that. Pretty solid.
We've had a lot of requests for the nonfiction to come out. So, and we also think that with the nonfiction, that's going to help other people that are just coming into this world to understand where Shadow of the Baseband came from. Because it's all the facts in our research. So we decided to do that book first and be our main focus for now. Book 3, we're hoping to have out probably by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Annie, you believe it or not, you segued into an area that I want to go into here.
All right.
I want you and Marianne to take this one. Let's talk about it. We're talking tonight about, the impact of the Beatles and the social and pop cultural impact. Let's talk a little bit, and very, very little about the political impact of the Beatles, but more so, let's talk about what we're doing right now. Then the Beatles has apparently affected you and Marianne to such a point where not only did you not settle for writing one book or 2 books, but you've got 4 in the works. Okay. So that's either like the absolute epitome of fandom, or there's a lot about the Beatles that's still left uncovered. So let's talk about that. I'm going to bring you and Marianne up here side by side. And so let's talk about Marianne, where I'm going with this. So let's talk about whoever wants to hit that topic first.
The political?
I went through all of this for you to say. Go ahead, Andy, go ahead. Take it in.
Well, the politics at the time. I mean, they were the voice of a generation. And they were out there, they were anti-war, and they were talking about that. And it was something they weren't supposed to talk about, actually, too. And in England, they were making some damaging conversations. They were telling, the prime minister, hey, lower the taxes on the working class, give us a break, stop the taxes on the cigarettes, as an example. And they were also saying that, thanks for the Purple Heart, John said once in an interview. And the Purple Heart was their slang for
amphetamines.
Yeah, so they're telling the British government to stop the import of heroin. So they were very outspoken there. And also what they did, they changed the language. At the time, public speakers and especially politicians, they wanted to speak the Queen's English, the proper English. So when the Beatles came along, they just spoke everyday language that they grew up with in Liverpool. And when they were asked, why aren't you speaking the Queen's English? Paul just pointed out, well, why would I? I'm from Liverpool, and this is how I speak.
What they did, and I think to add to what Ann is saying, what they did was they made, especially young people, they made young people feel like they counted.
Yeah, they empowered them.
Exactly. Yeah, they sure did.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing, Marianne, let's talk about. In addition to, let's talk a little bit about the political. Well, it wasn't even so much a political comment. Let's talk about the comment that John made that set off a firestorm of moral indignation around the world when he said, and he wasn't lying.
He wasn't lying.
You can't say that John was lying. He said that we are more popular than Jesus Christ. And guess what? He was telling the truth.
Because he was relating to, at the time, that the churches were not being full and their concerts were filled to the rim. He was just making a simple comparison of the religion not being detrimental or saying anything bad about it. Just that it was just, as he said, he over and over again, he says, it's just a fact. And everybody's misquoting me on what I said and what I meant. And he just meant that
he never said anything untoward or derogatory.
No, not at all.
He never said anything derogatory in any way, shape, or form about Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that just drove them crazy. That whole tour, everybody asking them that question over and over and over again. It was just maddening.
And what got me though, that there was this one disc jockey in some bumfuck Georgia somewhere, right?
The Bible Belt.
Apparently, this guy felt like he had the keys to the kingdom. Like his decision not to play the Beatles was going to make or break that band. I got news for you, jackass. The Beatles were going to make it whether you played the fucking music or not, okay?
Whether they had a burning pile of Beatle albums on being, bonfires, that, you know what? George said it perfectly. When those bonfires were going on and they were burning their albums, he said, it doesn't matter. We aren't going to say anything one way or the other, but they're going to go around and buy those albums all over again.
And that's exactly what I was just about to say to you. Do you guys know, and Amelia, check this out because you're the young pup here. Do you guys know that after that whole moral indignation, after that whole clusterfuck, that religious bullshit, all right? After all of that was said and done, those kids, the same kids that listened to their parents and were burn your Beatles records, go to the bonfire, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Imagine that down south, burning records and books. Imagine that. Can't fucking imagine that, right? They went out and they bought those albums all over fucking again. They bought them.
Oh, that's the same thing when we did when Papa Bush, they said to burn all the Dixie Chicks music and everything because of what she said about Papa Bush. We went out and bought more Dixie Chick stuff.
They went out and bought it. Yeah, by the way, the Dixie, listen to this one.
Yeah.
You're going to love this. on a side note, since you fucking mentioned the Dixie Chicks,
Mhm.
they had to drop the term Dixie from. They're called the Chicks now.
Oh yeah,
That makes me mad. I still call them the Dixie Chicks, whether or not I
This is
will.
how fucking
it's
stupid.
terrible what they're making everybody change history. It's our history. If you don't have it, you don't learn from it, and then you repeat it.
Well,
so leave it alone.
Yeah.
Amelia and I have done a show already in that regard called "Leave Our History Alone." That's part 1. We've got a 4-parter.
If
they are not, if we can help it, and we can help it,
right?
They're trying to erase your history as you know it.
Right.
Guess what?
Yeah,
exactly. It ain't going to happen on my watch.
If the Beatles had made that statement now,
it ain't going to happen
like they did back then, and then now they're talking about all this devil worship, what would the fans react like now if they had made that statement now compared to all the devil worship going on? What would the fans do now, you think?
I think they would just ignore it.
Yeah, I think
they probably would agree with John.
You want to hear the funny part?
Yeah.
About all this? At the time, the Beatles were considered the clean cut, the nice boys, right?
Right.
And the Rolling Stones were the bad
boys.
Right.
Guess what? Couldn't have been more opposite. The Beatles were the bad boys that ended up being. The Stones ended up being the gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have to tell you a story.
Fucking scary thought, ain't it? That Mick and Keith ended up being the good guys. And Ronnie Wood and Bill Wyman. Ain't that some shit?
I have to tell you a story about the burning there down in the South. One of the radio stations was calling for the ban on the Beatles and, burn the records and everything like that.
Yep.
Well, their antenna got hit by lightning.
Oh, serves them right.
So I think that's a little ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't fuck with God.
No.
Did you know, Angelo, knowing radio stations and stuff? I just recently found this out through looking through research and stuff, that the BBC and a lot of these stations weren't wanting to broadcast a lot of records back then.
Yeah.
And there was a boat called Caroline Radio.
Yeah.
Out 3.5 miles off the coast, broadcasting 24/7 all the records, all the 45s that they weren't allowed to record or to air.
And there's nothing they could do about it. You know why?
Yeah, they were at 3.5 miles out. They were
in international waters. Absolutely.
That's
as long as you're more than as long as you're more than 2 miles offshore, you are considered international waters. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was great.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has been an amazing conversation. You guys are always welcome guests here. You know that.
Thank you.
I gotta have you back when at least one of the next two is ready to hit.
The nonfiction. I mean, I'd like to. We've talked about it. We'd like to try and have it out by Paul's birthday. We'll see.
Okay.
Get it that soon.
And Paul was not November somewhere.
June.
Oh, June. Who was November? What am I missing? Who was November?
George passed in November.
Oh, George passed in November. I knew one of them.
George's birthday is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, George's birthday's tomorrow.
Yeah.
The 25th.
Yes.
That's ironic how we're having
I never know what day
tonight.
it is. What's date? Today's the 23rd.
Yeah,
so Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Oh, George's birthday's on Saturday. It's funny because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking there's some significant date with November.
Kennedy's assassination.
I thought it was one of their birthdays, but no, as Annie said, George passed in November.
Yeah.
The other thing that, again, like stupid little trivia stuff, each one of the guys had a home in the U.S. Except for Billy. Ringo had a home here and still does. George had a home here and his family still does. And John had a home here and Yoko still has it. Paul never had a home here.
Paul never did. Billy did.
Billy did. Okay.
Billy has multiple.
Paul was the only one that didn't have a home here.
He did not have a home here because he died too early. They didn't have homes here at that time. But Billy had the Arizona ranch where Linda died.
Right. Yeah.
We'll get into that at some point.
Right.
He has a place in the Hamptons. He has a place in New York City. And
right.
I think there's another one too, isn't there, Ann?
California.
And one in LA.
So he's keeping what, like 5 or 6 places?
Oh, he has, multiple places.
Yeah.
Well, he can afford the upkeep on them all.
And then the place in Surrey is like huge.
Interesting. Well, I'll tell you what. It's been a hell of an, especially for Amelia. It's been an education for this kid. In keeping with our "Don't Be a Bully" campaign, let's just tell everybody: be a buddy, not a bully.
Yes.
If you feel like you're being bullied and you need somebody to talk to, there is help. The National Crisis Hotline. Give them a call. The number is 988. If you feel like you're being bullied, the number is real simple: 988. You can call it, you can text it, you can fax it. They got everything wrapped up in those little 3 numbers, 988.
Yes.
So, Amelia, what did you learn tonight, young lady?
I learned a lot today.
Good, because you will be quizzed next week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you learned a lot, too, from Pickles.
Electrolytes, Angelo.
Cherry Kool-Aid and pickles. Annie, how is this even allowed, Annie? How is this even allowed?
Annie knows about the pickle juice and electrolytes and what it helps you regain hydration.
Annie was the last bastion of hope for me here, okay? I knew, Marianne, you were beyond hope from the get-go. I knew that.
Because these are my girls.
Amelia was way beyond hope. She's been beyond hope since she started with me. I thought Annie's the one person that she's got my back on this one. And Angelo, Annie turned around and went right up my ass with it.
Angelo, I have got to tell you something.
Yes, my dear.
He might like pickles and cherry Kool-Aid together, but I like macaroni and cheese mixed with cranberry sauce.
Well, that's good.
Actually, that doesn't. I'll tell you why that doesn't bother me. I'm going to tell you exactly why. There is a diner out here called the Meadows Diner. They serve mac and cheese with cranberry sauce and 2 crab cakes on top.
Oh, let's go.
I'm straight up. That's how they serve it, and they sell that all day long.
I'm sure they do.
Can't get enough of it.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Wow.
It's delicious. I had it once. It was fucking great. Well, let's tell everybody, Amelia. Let's tell everybody our name is our address. It's wwtfradio.podbean.com. Visit one of our YouTube channels. You can see us at youtube.com/What's the Buzz Podcast or youtube.com/@Blunt Talk Radio, or the oldest of these, youtube.com/@The Psychic Realm Podcast.
Yeah, and block us as you see what happens if I get mad or not.
Yeah, right? We got 2 Facebook pages. Amelia, tell everybody about our Facebooks, because you put this together and I don't know shit about it.
It's a Facebook. Of course, we have the Facebook. What's the Buzz? Facebook, and What's the Buzz? Facebook with the question mark.
Get it out. Get it out there.
What's the Buzz Podcast? What's the Buzz Podcast with the Facebook with a question mark, and then What's the Buzz Podcast group.
Yeah, absolutely. We have our Facebook group. Now, listen, there's a bunch of numbers here. It says facebook.com/groups, and then there's a bunch of numbers.
I don't know why they put those numbers.
Forget about them numbers. Just go on Facebook and search What's the Buzz Podcast group.
Yes. We also have a TikTok and Instagram account as well under What's the Buzz
and
Podcast.
a Twitter and Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Uvu, Vimeo, YouTube, NewTube, let's see, what else did I say? Roku, Tubi TV,
and he opened up some kind of Snapchat.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Snapchat. Yes, we're going to have a Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure out how to work it though.
No.
Got to ask my wife
But
about
if
that.
you have a show idea or have some questions, you can email us at what'sthebuzzpopcast@gmail.com.
Say that again.
What'sthebuzzpopcast@gmail.com.
There you go. One more time. What's the buzz podcast at gmail.com.
gmail.com.
There you go. They like the way I said it better
They do not.
because I got a radio voice.
You do. I say I have a
Speaking of
good
radio,
voice
we
too.
are WWTF Radios. That is, search us on Google, any search engine you want. It's very simple. WWTF Radio or What's the Buzz Podcast.
Well, for your radio
You'll
voice,
find us. We are at home or at work, on the road, in your car. We are everywhere you are.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not hard to find. We're literally right now on over 3,000. I'm not even shitting you, folks. Over 3,000 platforms worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
We are on 2 television stations. We are on more than 520 commercial radio stations worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
74 domestically here in the U.S. We are huge overseas. They love us in Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, Germany, Italy. Did I do my commercial for overseas yet?
Yes.
Amelia, did I? Okay.
Yes, we did.
Never mind then. I won't do it again.
Just check your local listings for the channels.
Yes. If you want to know where we vary from state to state and region to region, you got to go and check us out, find us where we are. And because we're somewhere right now, we're on somewhere. Oh, want to say thank you to Fair Media Group, Corey Fair and Marlon Brown.
Yes.
You guys were amazing guests on Tuesday. You're coming back again. Okay. Papa Bear's bringing them back again. They don't know it yet, but this is their invitation.
Yes.
This is me telling them they're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We had a hell of a show the other night.
Yes,
great,
we did.
Great show. Hollywood Pedophiles.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Great show.
Yeah.
We did.
So for Ann Walsh, for Marianne Howard, for the mouth of the South, Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, I am Mad Dog, Angelo DeCipio. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.